What I really liked about, like, the characters in this movie is they were all in. We didn't get the tropey, like, the dad doesn't believe it, and he's, fighting against it. Like, once shit hit the fan, they were all invested in what was actually happening.
Well, how
There wa
could they not with the intensity of this haunting? That's part of my issue with how just off the wall ridiculous it was. It was just insane. Like we had like, how are you gonna like there's trees a tree ate his child. What's he gonna be like? I don't buy it. You know, like
Well, not only that.
Welcome into another Hometown Ghost Stories horror movie review. This is one we've been waiting to do for quite some time. I think personally, it's going to be one of our most controversial episodes that we've ever done in terms of horror movie reviews. But let's get some formalities out of the way. I am your host, Rob Coakley, joined as always by Jesse Wilkins
Hello, Robert.
and Dave Wilkins.
Hello, Robert.
And today we are talking about the movie Poltergeist, the original one from the 1980s, not the
Me too.
remake. I haven't seen that one yet.
I've also not seen the remake, and I didn't watch it because of reasons you will learn.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Well, let's start to get into those reasons. But first, Dave, do you have a synopsis for us?
Yes, I do. Poltergeist, 1982, directed by Tobe Hooper or Steven Spielberg,
Maybe.
or maybe both. Who knows? A young family are visited by ghosts at their home. At first, the ghosts appear friendly, moving objects around the house to the amusement of everyone, but then they turn nasty and start to terrorize the family before they kidnap the youngest daughter. So, Poltergeist, 1982. I'll start off by saying that this is probably the most influential movie in the paranormal genre of movies. If it was not for this movie and the layout of it and the way it was set up, you will probably not have massive franchises like The Conjuring, franchises like Insidious, and it pretty much set the table for the modern structure of a paranormal movie. So kudos to them for that. This is one of the most influential movies that came out of the horror genre in the 1980s, and it was put out by the absolute powerhouse that was Steven Spielberg, who was a producer. I alluded to it in the
Allegedly.
yeah, he was people don't really believe that Tobe Hooper was the director of this. And if you compare this movie, which really does hit like a Steven Spielberg movie, compare it to like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was a Tobe Hooper movie, they don't feel the same at all. This feels a lot more like a Steven Spielberg production than it does a Tobe Hooper. So
Yeah, I think there was like one scene where I'm like, this feels like Tobe Hooper maybe did something with this scene. I
he
mean, I know
did
there's
the
probably more, but yeah.
he was mainly in control of the tree scene where the tree ate the
Okay.
kid. That fucking brilliant scene. But this movie, what I will say about it is it started out pretty good. I thought that the hauntings as they were progressively increasing with the things moving around the house and the little girl hypnotized by the TV, things that she saw on the TV, I thought that was kind of cool. And then it just went right to fucking banana land. Just all of a sudden, 0 to 10, it went nuts. And it was just like, it turned into this big, just Steven Spielberg absolute chaos, and people are getting sucked into closets. Trees are coming to life and crashing through windows and eating the kids. It's just like, dude, okay, this is a bit too much. And then I think it actually did it came together at the end, was pretty cool. But for the most part, every time I watch this movie, it just annoys me, and I always go back to it because everyone gives it so much praise, and I just want to. I'm like, what is the hype on this movie? And I'm just always disappointed because it's always just complete banana land. It's like just so much. I mean, I respect it for what it is, but I don't really like this movie, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, some of the negatives in this movie, like the overacting, it just wasn't well acted in my opinion, like top to bottom. It just felt more like a play than a movie, kind of the way that they were acting. And I mean, it's 82, but it just felt like such a weird knockoff of The Exorcist. It's just I wasn't a big fan of this movie either. I remember enjoying it the first time I saw it. Like, ooh, Poltergeist, it's going to be so creepy, but it really just didn't feel like a horror movie. It felt like more like fantasy thriller, maybe. But it just wasn't really horror to me. But I mean, it's a classic. I mean, I did watch it when I was young. I enjoyed it when I was young. There were creepy moments in the movie, but overall, I mean, like at some point, you call the police. I understand police aren't really going to be able to deal with the situation, but they never did. It's just like, oh, my kid's been kidnapped by a ghost, and the tree is attacking us. The family's getting sucked into the closet. The chairs are stacking, which is, there are plenty of iconic moments in this movie, but overall, like it wasn't horror. I mean, going back and rewatching it, you can go back and rewatch plenty of older movies that hold up and you're like, oh, this was scary. Oh, that was cool. The way they did this. And this movie, it never got scary to me, even when I saw it when I was younger.
I think the end, you could probably say, was what had a scary moment, and definitely, like, for me, the end is cool. So it's like, it'll get points in that for me, because like the end of a horror movie I find to be super important. And I think that the premise was good, where they built the house on the burial grounds. That's like a huge trope now, but not so much in 1982. And just the way that they revealed that. But a lot of the middle of this movie is massively problematic for me, and just how over the top it was. And then with the mother of all exposition dumps, with that psychic lady who came and it was the worst exposition dump I think I've ever seen in my life. It was just so over the top. Rob, what do you think about this movie?
Did you guys watch the original Poltergeist movie from 1982? Because what the hell are you guys talking about? This movie's fine. This is a good movie. I'm not going to give it a 5-star review, but it's going to be in the 4s probably when I give the review. It is. I know what it's going to be. There is action from the beginning of this movie. It starts off, it jump starts right away. You get right into the hauntings. There's no unnecessary filler in the beginning leading you into it. You get into the hauntings. You have some terrifying scenes. The bathroom scene, you guys don't even reference the bathroom scene. That, I'm going to be honest, it felt a little out of place. But it was terrifying as hell.
Are you talking about where he ripped his face off?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was scary.
PG movie, by the way.
Yeah. So
Now,
PG.
How?
It was, so when it first came out, they wanted to give it an R rating, but Steven Spielberg fought it. He said, I don't make R-rated movies. And he's like the godfather of movies at the time. So they're like, whatever you say.
Yeah.
But there was no PG-13.
Make it PG-13.
I don't think there was PG-13 at the point.
PG-13 didn't come out as a rating till 1984. So that's why it didn't happen at the time. But I mean, Rob, you can say that they were concise in the beginning and they cut right to the chase. They didn't beat around the bush. This movie was easily 30 to 35 minutes too long. So dragged out in the middle.
It was definitely too long.
It wouldn't end. Like, it's just, and I liked the end, but I was like, man, are they going to end this movie? It ended like 3 different fucking times, which is, I mean, that feels like a Steven Spielberg thing to do.
It was definitely too long. I will give you that. There was some stuff that could be cut out. What I really liked about like the characters in this movie is they were all in. We didn't get the tropey, like the dad doesn't believe it and he's, fighting against it. Like once shit hit the fan, they were all invested in what was actually happening.
Well, how could they not with the intensity of this haunting? That's part of my issue with how just off the wall ridiculous it was. It was just insane. Like how are you gonna, like, there's trees, a tree ate his child. What's he gonna be like? I don't buy it. Like,
not only that, in his bedroom, right? Kid gets eaten by a tree. And then they continue to send him back to bed in the same bedroom after that.
I know the tree's still out there.
Irresponsible move as a parent.
Yeah, a lot of things didn't really add up here and there. Stuff that I can probably forgive. But the one thing I did like, what I thought was kind of a funny scene, was when the paranormal investigators showed up and they're about to go into the bedroom, and one of the investigators is talking to the father. He's like, we have a video. It's about a 7-second video of a toy car, Matchbox car, moving about 7 inches, and we have it in time lapse, and it's really magnificent to see. And the dad just goes, and then opens the door, and everything in the room is just spinning like crazy. I thought that was great.
They did a great job at one point with like his makeup showing that he hadn't been sleeping, and
Mhm.
and then that just goes away. So like that's a negative. Like, why is he look fine again?
Yeah.
Like you showed him. I don't know. So there's like little continuity stuff like that that I didn't care for, but for the time, I mean, the special effects are what they are at this point. We can't knock them on it. It was
And I
what it
don't.
was.
I, I I will say, and we do use this from time to time, saying it was what it was. It was 1982 special effects. This special effects that. Alien came out in 1979.
Yeah, but you're comparing, you know, they have to do CGI or some sort of stuff like that because it's a paranormal one,
Yeah,
and
there
you're
was a lot
comparing
of.
it to a practical effects something like
I don't know how
so.
much CGI was done here. I think a lot of it was practical effects. Obviously, there was a CGI like ghost hand that came out of the TV, which for me didn't love it. Kind of felt like I was watching Casper the Friendly Ghost.
There was that, and there was like a lot of like disco lights being used. It
So
was
a
just
lot of that was actually
not very well.
practical. They had
Right, I don't care if
spotlights.
it's practical. It didn't hit home for me. Like I'm like, this
Oh,
isn't scary. This looks like a party. It's it just wasn't.
well, I thought because we were talking about the usage of practical effects versus
Right.
CGI.
Sure. Well, I'm just saying that I don't think they executed with the effects in this movie. And if you look at like A Nightmare on Elm Street, which was what 2 years after this movie,
Mhm.
the effects that they did in this movie were unbelievable. With kind of this, I mean, obviously it's a different kind of movie. A Nightmare on Elm Street's kind of its own genre in itself. But I mean, if you look at how well executed the effects were in that movie compared to this movie, where I'm just watching it, and of course I'm taking into account that it's a 1982 movie. But if you look at the other movies that surround it, it's like this is just one of the things that didn't really hit for the most part with me. Now, some of it was good. I bashed this movie a little bit because I just didn't find it very scary. But some of the effects worked. A lot of them really didn't.
Yeah. Well, on that CGI versus practical effects, the light at the end scene when they had the closet open again for the final time and you had those like crazy lights coming out of it, that was not CGI. They actually had a spotlight in front of an aquarium filled with water. And that's how they got that weird light effect. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. You know what the greatest practical effect in this entire movie was? The scene in the pool. Because
yes. I don't even know if you can call it practical effects.
Yeah, well, it was practical. They used real skeletons in this movie. These were not, made up. These were legitimate skeletons, human skeletons that were in
I've seen so much back and forth about this. I heard they used one.
No.
And then I heard that they used all. What is the truth of it?
The truth is they used actual skeletons, and it was the idea of the practical effects designer who was in charge, and it was cheaper to use these and they were available than it was to build them, and it obviously looks better with the real thing.
Yeah,
but they actually believe that
sorry, go ahead.
They believe that the fact that they used these human cadavers or skeletons, I don't know what point of decomposition you'd still call it a cadaver, but they used these human skeletons, and they believe that was why the cast of this movie was cursed. So there was a curse that's also tied to this movie, which is interesting.
Ooh, I think
so interesting that we could probably even cover it on like a Curse Possessions episode. But just to give you the brief once over, the little girl actress died 6 years after like a weird heart disease that was misdiagnosed as some sort of intestinal something. She died in surgery after she filmed the third Poltergeist, but 6 months after first Poltergeist came out, the actress who played the older daughter, Dana, was strangled to death by her boyfriend.
Yeah. And there's a bunch more stuff. I don't want to get too into it because I have considered doing a Curse Possessions episode on this because it's just such a wild story. But there's a little teaser for when we do eventually do that.
So just to cap that off, according to Snopes, it is true that real skeletons were used for a sequence in the horror movie Poltergeist. Spooky legends have long haunted the 1982 horror classic Poltergeist, including a creepy backstory that periodically reappears about human skeletons being used as props in one of the original film sequences. In the movie, Diane Freeling is dragged into her family's swimming pool by a supernatural force identified as the Beast. She escapes to rescue her children, but not without being confronted by the skeletons of people that, unbeknownst to her and her family, were still buried in the ground under their home. In an interview that aired on entertainment channel VH1 in 2002, Williams said, "I would have to go into this huge tank of what I thought were mud with these skeletons, which by the way, I thought were plastic, but later found out they were real skeletons.
Yeah.
It was a real nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is absolutely horrifying.
That's crazy.
And that scene is great.
Yes.
Yeah, very good scene. I think this movie has a lot of good scenes. My negative is it is a Steven Spielberg movie. And I think maybe there's something about Spielberg horror movies that are just a little off to me. I don't know if it's the score. I don't know what it is. Like it's not that they're terrible.
I thought the score was pretty terrible in this movie, to be honest with you.
Why the fuck were we listening to the national anthem for like 18 minutes of this movie? And it kept coming back. Like, why?
Well, I definitely don't think some of our younger viewers are going to understand that a little bit. But when TV actually used to sign off back in the day, like I don't remember what time it was like 10 or 11 o'clock, a channel like CBS or something would sign off. They would play the national anthem and then the screen would just go to nothing. There would be nothing playing at that point. So you would get your
Snow,
your snow on the TV. So that's what that was always referencing on that.
Gotcha.
Which is tough to follow nowadays because it's not a thing anymore.
No,
and it wasn't a thing very shortly after this for most channels.
Yeah. So, okay, that actually does kind of make a little bit of sense. Still, like, I don't need the national anthem in my face, but I actually didn't know that. So that's good to know.
Why do you hate America, Dave?
I don't hate America, Rob. It's the greatest country in the world. But yeah, I don't need the national anthem in my horror movies. But yeah, I mean, I think the scores are just a little bit generally wacky. And I think you guys had the same issue with Jaws, right?
Yeah.
Also a Spielberg movie. I think Spielberg, he's too much of a big production guy, and everything's going to be a big thing. And that's kind of like my main issue with this. Is like, it started out creepy as like a spooky ghost movie. And then it just went to Steven Spielberg crazy town. It just, all the effects thrown right in your face, and you're just dialed to 10 for the rest of the movie. It's just too much, I think, for a haunting movie. Probably would make a kick-ass zombie movie, I bet. But I don't know. For haunting, I feel like you got to dial it back a little bit.
I don't know. I don't need the same. And again, this is 1982, so they were sort of setting the formula.
Right.
I don't need that same formula every time where we're getting the progression on the hauntings, like slowly throughout the movie. I sort of like that it just sort of picked up and was batshit insane throughout the entire movie, and shit's just going down time after time after time. I liked the change of pace for that, for a horror, for a ghost movie. I like the other way usually a little bit better, but I don't want that every single time. I don't want to escalate.
Right.
Did you guys get I was watching this, I'm like, what the hell? Like Craig Nelson looks so much like Patrick Wilson. Did you guys put that together? I'm watching. I'm like, how is Patrick Wilson? This is like, this guy looks great for his age if he was in this movie. But I thought that if you look at, I'll pull up a picture. But I'm surprised you guys didn't catch that while you were watching it. I was like, damn, this looks so much like, Patrick Wilson from like The Conjuring.
I just think he doesn't look like Patrick Wilson. But I mean, like, I think they might have designed Patrick Wilson's character in The Conjuring to look like Craig Nelson's character in Poltergeist. The Conjuring took a lot from this movie, not in like a bad way, but you're right,
a little bit, yeah. Like I looked at the screen, I'm like, well, no way he's in this movie.
Yeah, no, but you could definitely tell that The Conjuring took a lot of inspiration from this movie, like the format, haunting, families haunted, they call in the paranormal investigators come. Same with the Insidious.
Yeah, like, dude, looks just like him.
It does look a lot like him. Yeah, I think you. I mean, you can definitely tell that The Conjuring, where they drew their inspiration from this movie, they probably designed Patrick Wilson's character to look like Craig Nelson's character.
Yeah, I think for me, I wouldn't pick up on it just because I watched the show Coach with Craig Nelson so long.
Oh, he didn't look like him after this at all, but in this particular movie, I thought he did.
So like his face was so recognizable to me. Also, shout out to Mr. Incredible from the Pixar movies. That's who does the voice for him on that. So
oh, really? All right.
Yeah. So I don't know, dude. I like this movie. I think it's good. The score's too whimsical again. I think that's just my problem with that whole situation. I think Spielberg he tries to do too many uplifting things in certain areas that don't need to be uplifting. I I don't know if that's him or if he's just handing this over to a composer and the composer's doing it and he's signing off on it. That's a little bit of a issue for me.
Mm,
I love the scene where he's yelling at his boss, Craig Nelson,
yeah.
and being like, you moved the headstones, but you didn't move the bodies. And like that reveal
Yep.
is
Oh,
so
yeah.
good. So
Yeah.
good.
Also, Rob, do you love the clown doll in this movie? Or what?
Oh my God. I hated this thing. This thing is terrifying. I hated that it had to come, like you're watching it the whole movie. You're like, we know something's going to happen with this stupid doll. It's going to come to life at some point. I got to deal with a clown doll. Why do I have to keep dealing with clown dolls during ghost stuff? Can we not? Can I just have ghost and not clown dolls or dolls in general? Can we separate the two at some point? I don't want to keep doing this. It happened to me at the Hinsdale house. Happened to me while watching the Poltergeist movie. I'm asking, I'm begging, I'm pleading. Can we stop with the dolls?
I also love the guy on the bike in the beginning of the movie when he's rolling up with all these beers. Just
Oh,
so
that was
Oh my God.
and you said nothing to these kids, like
Right?
you just cost me. That was a lot of beer. There was like, I don't know, it was probably like 26, 35 beers, something like that. Like it was a ton of beers. Drops them, they're spraying everywhere, but he's so dialed in on getting back and watching the game that he brings in the spraying beers for his boys to drink. Like,
You gotta love that they sent the guy with the apparent DUI to go on the beer run.
yeah,
Why is he on a
It's
bicycle?
man on a bike. Yeah,
Of course, he's
Had
gonna
to do
drop
it,
the
right?
beers.
He's like,
Of
I'm just
course he is.
trying to watch this Washington Philadelphia Eagles game.
Yeah, that was a funny scene.
How are you not firing? Like I would have been firing those cans at the kids. Like because I'd be
Yeah, especially the spraying ones. Like you got to learn your lesson.
yeah, this was ridiculous. Like it was
He didn't
ridiculous.
say a word to him. He just picked
No.
up his beers and ran in. Yeah,
I'd be
didn't-
firing them into my neighbor's window if he was intentionally changing the channel while we were trying to watch the game.
I know, especially to, what was it? It was
His kids are
Mr.
watching some
Rogers,
shit.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mr. Rogers.
yeah. Like, dude,
Yeah.
videotape it. Come on.
Yeah, we gotta have this fight. Like this is just, we have to settle this like men out in the yard. for
Also,
this.
like that could have been solved with manually turning the dial. It's just they kept hitting the remote. It's like, all right, let him watch that. I'm gonna go manually change my TV to
Yeah.
the football game and problem solved.
Yep.
All right, you use remote today. I'm gonna use it tomorrow. Then I'll go get a different TV or something.
It's amazing. But so this movie, I think if they made it more concise, it would have helped, I think. But it was so like they for no reason they wrapped the movie up and then just started it again. Like it ended.
Yeah.
They solved it. It was over. And then they just for no reason they started up. Like you could have condensed that. Why did you end it just to start it again? Have your big main finished scene. You don't need, or even like if you're gonna end the movie with like a twist, like, oh, it's not quite over yet. They could have done it that way. Just have your big crescendo, have the resolution, and then have the little creepy twist at the end. But like this movie there's no reason to have this movie 2 hours long. It's crazy. It's just too much. It was way too much, and for too long.
I know it's a common gripe of ours where we're like, this movie doesn't need to be this long, but a lot of movies really don't need to be the 2 hours. We don't need a lot of the fluff. I just don't get why this couldn't have been an hour 30, hour 40.
Especially a movie like this where it started immediately. Like there was
Yeah.
really no build up to this. It was just like, oh, kids talking to the TV in minute 2 of this movie, right?
Yeah.
It was too much haunting. The movie was all just crazy, dialed to 10 haunting for the entire duration of the movie. It was just way too much. And it's like, especially in the horror genre, where the more you're looking at the monster or the monsters, the less scary they become. This movie gets away with it a little bit, I think, because they had it appeared in so many different forms that it's not like you're not looking at the same thing over and over again, but it was just way too long and way dragged out.
And the tree looks terrible.
Yeah.
Just use a tree. I know you can't make
Yeah.
a tree do those kinds of things, but until the thing happens, use a real tree, because this thing just, you looked at it, it looks like something that you would ride past on a roller coaster at Disney World or something. Like, oh, that's not real. It's this whomping willow. Just okay, well, that's coming to life at some point,
Yeah. I say don't use the tree. at all. It'd be like my main thing with this movie, and it's the first thing that took me right out of it was that stupid scene with the tree coming through the window and grabbing the kid. I'm like, this is fucking stupid.
It just looks so stupid all along. Like the branches didn't make sense. It looked like it was made out of Play-Doh. It's just like use a tree, cover it in real bark, make it look like a tree.
They based this off a Twilight Zone episode about a girl who accidentally opened up a portal to another dimension in her wall and got lost inside the wall. The Twilight Zone was really creepy because it was subtle and it wasn't a huge production, just slamming you in the face with all their effects. I think that that's an example of doing too much can take a creepy story and make it less scary.
Agreed. Yep.
I do like what the paranormal research team was doing and how they came in and they were trying to debunk stuff and all that in 1982. I'm sure the ghost hunting stuff was not nearly as prevalent. So seeing how they portray that in this movie, I really enjoyed that. Where they come in there like there might be a speaker in the wall or something like that, and then like shit just gets even crazier. But they're still trying to debunk it as it gets even more wild, up until it's like, you know, it can't be anything else but a haunting. So
Right.
I enjoyed that aspect, and I also enjoyed that the spirits were communicating through the static of the television. That is something that we still sort of believe is something to this day. Obviously, we're not lugging around televisions from 1982 because
you don't really have the static of the television anymore, but there's the white noise that obviously.
Well, we don't have the core strength to carry those TVs around either.
Not in our advanced age.
No, not at all. All right, boys. I think we've sort of hit on all the points we need to for this particular movie. Do we want to get into some scores?
Let's do it.
All right. I'll start because I'm going to give it a good score. I have it at a 4.1. I think that it portrays a haunting very well. I do think it's a little over top, a little long, but I actually like the acting performances for the most part. I thought there were some really good scares in here. I think I want to say it's like the perfect starter movie for like if you wanted to start getting your kids into horror. And then I think about the bathroom scene and I'm like, man, that is just, it might be a little too much on that one particular scene.
No, there's the end scene with the woman in the bed too.
Yeah, I guess so. So it's close, maybe. I mean, again, I watched this when I was like 5 years old. So, you know, tell your kids to grow up and be adults at 5.
Yeah. Grow up, loser. Anyways, I got this one at a solid 4. Like I love 80s movies. I just love the feeling of it. Like I love the whimsical stuff, the edginess of them. While it's, you know, things aren't politically correct. It's just, but just the feel good kind of, you know, like your E.T. movies and these movies, like you get that, like just the busy neighborhoods where everyone's riding bikes and interacting with each other. Now everyone just stays home and sits on the internet and no one talks. I haven't met
like us.
Yeah, look at us. This is what we're doing. We could be in a room doing a podcast together. Instead, we're doing this. I don't know. I just, every time I watch an 80s movie, good or bad, I just enjoy it. I enjoy it. And this one, it is a classic. We kind of bashed on it a little bit, way over the top, which is why it's not too much higher. I probably shouldn't give this a full 4, but I'm going to because it is still really enjoyable. And it's Ghost. It's fun. It's Poltergeist. So it's a classic. But there are some things that really did pull me back from giving it a higher rating. You know, ran too long. All the things we talked about. Music was way over the top. The effects were corny. The tree sucked. You know, but yeah, solid 4.
Yep. I got it at a 3.6. And it was, I did think it started pretty good. I thought it ended pretty strong. I thought it was way too long and way too wacky in the middle. So not to reiterate everything I said earlier, but yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm at a 3.6 for this. But it is, like I said, highly influential. And I think it's a very important movie in the horror genre.
Those are our scores for the movie Poltergeist. What did you like about this movie? What did you not like about this movie? Shoot over to Discord. Let us know. You can leave it in the comments over here on YouTube. But for Jesse, for Dave, for myself, that's going to do it for this horror movie review. We'll catch you next time. Peace.